Welcome in, everyone, to Girl, How'd You Get That Gig? For my co-host, Celeste Gehring. I'm Amy G, and our guest today is super inspirational. She's not only a boss, literally, she's a baller and doing impactful and meaningful things while making the world a better place. Please welcome Lindsay Amstutz, President of Media and Partnerships at Playfly Sports.
We're so happy you're here, and we know how busy you are, so we just really appreciate your time. Let's
That's
talk about
amazing.
you, and let's get some of this knowledge out there, because what a fantastic interview we're going to have, and what a great resource this is going to be for people wanting to get into sports. Let's just simplify what exactly is Playfly Sports, and then your role as president and media and partnerships. What does that entail?
Absolutely. So Playfly has been around now about 3 years, and it's actually one of the fastest growing sports agencies in the country. And we do, I'd say, essentially four things. One is we're very active in the high school and college space, sports properties or MMR rights, for those who are familiar. Second, building a bunch of fun agency capabilities. So from brand consulting to sports valuation, to a bunch in the insights and creative space. That's our global partnerships division. Thirdly, we have a tech and research side to Playfly. And then last but not least is Playfly Media, which is the division that I joined about 5 months ago, maybe 6 months. I've lost count, which is a good sign, of their Playfly Media division. And what we get to do is work with every team, every RSN partner across the country, and help them monetize their inventory, particularly doing so nationally, because a lot of teams and RSN partners might sell it locally to their local clients and their local companies, but we focus from a national side, really taking all of that incredibly engaging inventory. As I think we all have our favorite hometown teams, and we watch those games with maybe a little more passion than whatever the Wednesday night national game is on insert network here. And so that's what our really talented team of sales folks are out connecting that inventory with brands on a daily basis. And that's Playfly.
Yeah. And you all are everywhere, because I go to a lot of college games, and every time I swear I look up, it says Playfly Sports across that sign every single time. So what is the best part of your job right now, and what is like the toughest part of your gig?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think the best part of my job is the people. And people always say that, but it actually has the added benefit of being true, to quote one of my former bosses. But a big reason that I jumped into the Playfly opportunity is that Playfly actually acquired a company called Home Team Sports that used to be owned by Fox Sports, that I worked very adjacent to and in partnership with for many years, and had an opportunity to form a lot of great relationships with the people that were a part of Home Team Sports, who are now Playfly. And so when this opportunity came along, the chance to work with all of those individuals, including also working with a lot of our RSN partners. And when I was at Fox Sports for the time that I was, it was almost entirely focused on our regional sports business. So Playfly, although a new company and only 3 years old, has acquired various companies that have been around in sports quite a bit. And so there's just some tremendous people, not only known, loved, familiar ones, that were once at Fox Sports, but some of the other companies that they've brought on board under the Playfly umbrella have some of just the utmost leaders in sports. And so I was sitting around one of our leadership meetings a few months ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a master class. And, with just the sports knowledge and experience and relationships that are around the company. And so that by far is the best part and the energizing part. And it helps take on the hard part, to answer a second part of your question, which is like, especially in the media space, it's changing every day. It's changing so fast. And so, and the place that we sit in space, and the role that we play, it's constantly evolving, and to the point where every morning I wake up, and read the headlines, which, just to figure out like what my day's going to look like. And so trying to figure out how we can be best positioned, certainly within the home team sports space, but also within the Playfly space, but knowing that we've got this great group of people and experience that each of those people bring to the table. That's sort of the hardest part, is trying to keep up and trying to keep ahead. But we've got the people to figure it out, which is kind of balances it out, makes it fun.
Does that sound familiar, Celeste? Hard to keep up?
Yeah, just a little.
Just a little more. All right, let's go back and segue to a simpler time when Lindsay was
Yeah,
little Lindsay,
Little
right?
Lindsay.
Little Lindsay, and grew up in Van Nuys. And so when did your love of sports develop, and did you play? What's that look like?
Yeah, so actually, I didn't play sports growing up. I hated sports. I was a ballerina, and I was that girl in class in middle school who would add jumps when the PE teachers made us play football, and now I mean, that girl and I probably wouldn't be friends, but for the fact she is me. And so I was that gal, but I have a little brother who's about 7 years behind me, and he came along and he got into sports, and I started going to a bunch of his games, and came time for me to go to high school, and I was all set for drill team because that's what I was going to do. And a good family friend was like, you should try for the basketball team. You're pretty tall and you've been going to all your brother's games. You've learned the sport. I'd been kind of assistant coaching for his team. And somehow she got me to a summer practice. I don't even know how she got, because I was like, no, I'm good. But I ended up going to a summer basketball practice for what would then be my high school. And I think it was about 15 minutes in where I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And all that sports, as we know, teaches both genders, but particularly women, about teamwork and competitiveness and all of these things. And at that point, I just wished I had started younger, but I wasn't that girl. Like I wouldn't have been the girl that would have been the girl, or one of two girls in the co-ed league. And at that point with that little brother, I was kind of babysitting everybody around our hometown team, and had been living at the park with my brother. And so went to them and said, you need to start a girls basketball league. And as the story has been relayed to me, I guess they kind of like patted me on the head and was like, sure, why don't you go find girls that'll play? And well, needless to say, I was back there 48 hours later, and I was like, here's 45
Here they
girls who
are.
all agreed to sign up and play, because
It was
This is why she's the
training.
president.
I
Yes,
know, it
hello.
was
Yeah.
training. You were literally training for what you were doing. Yeah.
When I
Especially the
look back.
babysitting part.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
No
I love
offense,
it.
no offense.
No, exactly. But yeah, no, and that's why I tell that part of the story is like, it was my first sports marketing job. Like I did,
Totally.
I planned the All-Star games, and I did the newsletter and all the flyers and promoted it, and dealt with conflicts between parents. The girls were always fine. It was always the parents, And so so from that, at that point on, but that was before sports management degrees were everywhere, and it wasn't even really thinking about it as a career. It was just, this is what I enjoyed doing, and I was so excited to get more girls playing basketball sooner, because I felt like I had missed that and wished I had started younger. And so did that, and yeah, that was my first job in sports.
So Celeste, as you know, Celeste is a collegiate basketball player.
Mhm.
Growing up in Petaluma, California, we did not have basketball offered to girls. Celeste, how old were you when you started playing?
5. But my dad and brothers, yeah.
Yeah. But did you play organized at 5? Like we had
Lions
organized
Club. We had Lions Club. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had softball and soccer for girls starting at 5. And that's all we had. So I was in the same boat, Lindsay. I didn't touch a basketball until I was a freshman in high school. I had a brother that was 4 years older who I'd gone to every single game because I had to, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, sure, I'll try out. And I got this is how sad our team was. I got put on varsity because I could run. Like I could get down and back to the court fast. I didn't know how to shoot, dribble. I knew nothing. And thank God, we just talked about this last podcast for some of our brothers. Like my brother took me out and showed me how to post up and, shoot a layup and do all that. And I wouldn't have been able to play without him. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, my brother, don't tell him this, but he gets a lot of credit for the career that is, mine now in sports. And so, but I don't actually say that to him because he's still my brother. So
yeah. Keep him in line.
Exactly.
We love them, but we won't admit, Exactly.
So once you started playing, did you have some heroes and athletes you thought, oh man, I want to be like them, or anybody you fell in love with?
In that era, I mean, a few things come to mind. Like one, I was the gal, as maybe you both were, that had the Nike "If you let me play sports" commercial like typed out and put into my little binder. So I love some of the imagery that was around at that time. But Shamiqua Holdsclaw is the one. Tennessee was great, as was Stanford, right? When I was in high school and kind of falling in love with the sport. And so, but Shamika Holdscott was one of the first times where I remember watching her do something on TV and then going in my backyard and trying to do it. And but I had never done that watching an NBA game or a men's college game because, well, hate to break it to you guys, but I don't really have the vertical and I can't really, I just couldn't do any of that stuff. But she did something. And so for the first time, I was like, I could do that, and went out and actually tried to do it. And so that definitely, is something that is sort of etched in my mind. And then the Stanford women's teams, I was a huge fan of, so many of those athletes and what they accomplished. So that's what I would say.
So I think she's leading into our next question, but I'm going to tell a really quick story because I love that you went to try and emulate this shero for you, right? So I did that. When I was 9, I decided, and I'm 5'10", I decided I wanted to be Mary Lou Retton from the 1984 Olympics. She's all of 4'10", I don't know. And instead of taking a shower like I was supposed to, I was 9 years old. I'm running the water like I'm taking a shower, but I decided to grab the shower curtain pole. I didn't go to Stanford, Lindsay, so I don't have the sharpest tool in the shed. And it was one of those spring poles, where you push it in and then it fits in. So I'm like, I'm gonna do like a jump off the whole thing comes off the wall, right? I am 9, I am naked, and I'm supposed to be taking a shower, and so knock, mom and dad, are you okay? Amy, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. I don't know what happened. The whole thing just came down. I'm not sure what happened. And so my dad's like, my father, who went to Stanford, goes, get in the shower. I'm naked. All right, get in the shower. I'm not gonna look. He comes in, he's like, okay, let me get the thing. So now he's got it up with the shower curtain between us, and I'm watching him like this. And that Stanford grad dropped the pole onto my face, and my tooth sliced in half. And this tooth is always my dad and me and Mary Lou Retton. It's like this constant, like trying to be like an athlete that I was never going to be like because I was already too big. But it's a constant in our family, like, Dad, all right. It's like, well, you were the ding dong who decided to fly off the pole. So anyway, just a quick little shero story of my own that, resulted in facial damage. It's fine.
That's
But
awesome.
let's talk about Stanford, because you're a Southern California girl. So was it the basketball team that allured you? Obviously the academics, but what drew you to Palo Alto and to go to Stanford?
I think the basketball was a big part of it, especially Tar Vandiver coached the Olympic team, right? During sort of my application and move over there. And so, knew I wasn't going to play, never really considered walking on, although there's part of me that was like, you should have tried, but, however, they went to the Final Four my freshman year, and it was, everyone was Gatorade all worlds, and so, and I'm a pretty average basketball player. And so, but I had gone to, my family had traveled and we'd seen the US women's basketball team and with Tara, I think when I was a senior, and I went up to her and I was like, I'm coming to Stanford next year, which I was like, great. And I was like, and I want to work for the team. And she's like, sounds good. Look me up when you get there. Okay. So I roll in as a little freshman and I, knock on the women's basketball door and I was like, hi, you probably don't remember me, but we talked about me working with you. So like, when should I start? And she's like, oh, well, we already have our managers for freshman year or for what would be my freshman year. And I was like, okay, when do I start? Like what I'll do whatever. And so I ended up working in the office. I think I cut, this is oh my God, this is dating me in crazy ways, but I cut out news articles. There were these things called newspapers, or magazines. And so anything about the team, cut it out, or I would just do random office stuff. And they were kind enough to let me do that, and kind of started to go to shadow managers and go to practice every once in a while. And then sophomore year, a spot opened up. So then I was a manager, um, but Stanford was, an incredible experience, and I met some fantastic people. And then from there, Stanford hosted the women's Final Four my junior year, and so interned for that. Kind of similarly, though, and there's probably a story or a theme here is that they already had 2 grad student interns, and I was the undergrad intern, and so they were like, "No, we're good," and I'm like, no, find something for me to do. I don't care what it is, and I don't even remember what I did. I think I helped coordinate some volunteers or something, but I didn't really take no for an answer when I knew I wanted to be involved in each of those things. And so ended up interning for the women's Final Four. And then senior year, at this point, they couldn't get rid of me. So I would just kind of walk into the athletic department on the first day of school and be like, who needs an intern? I think I worked for development. I did some marketing for women's volleyball for a quarter. And so they kind of just found some things for me to do. But through that, met a woman who was really instrumental, especially early on, but still keep in touch, Cheryl Levick, who was the second in command at Stanford when I was there. And she became the head athletic director at Santa Clara shortly thereafter, and ended up following her to work in college athletics for a bit. So, but some of the advice I find myself always giving is to anyone who's in college who, calls up or reaches out. It's like, what can I do? I want to work in sports. I'm like, what are you doing with your athletic department right now? Like, you're a bike ride or a walk away, like go get some experience, especially as, college has become increasingly commercial, but there's so many great opportunities, whatever level your athletic department and kind of the college sports side of things are. Like, it's just such a great way to get hands-on experience and meet people. And as we all know, then, that those folks move, whether it's within the college ranks or outside, and there's just no better way exactly, no better way to get started than to take advantage of the, working with and for the athletic department when you're in school.
No, I was just going to add on to what Lindsay's saying about the opportunities on a college campus for experience. And I think, teaching at Sonoma State myself currently, what I've seen available to the student body is incredible, but the student body isn't really proactive in finding out about it. So those that show just a little bit of effort, it goes a long way, because when you find a student willing to, do the work, you find other things for them to do. They're golden. It sounds like Lindsay. Lindsay was a little piece of gold at Stanford.
Well, and now anytime I see a resume and if someone's a manager for a team, you're like an instant hire for me. Because I'm like, if you were willing to do the laundry, as I was, you're willing to do that, pulling out the bikes or grab like all of the really glamorous work that you get to do as a manager. And so now, if anyone says they manage a team, I'm like, great. When can you start? Like, I'll take it.
I love that. That's great knowledge for people to hear. Yeah. Get ready.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to get all these resumes.
All the managers. Lindsay.Amstutz at playfly.com. Like, send it on over. I can't wait to hear from you.
Now, you majored in poli-sci and got your master's in communications, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but that wasn't enough for you. Then you went on and exactly what did you do and why did you need it?
That's a great question. It might be assumptive in the wrong way. I'm not sure I did, but I went to a law and government high school, but gave the tours and said, you can come to this high school, even if you will never go to law school, because I'll never go to law school. And then I bounced around some majors before stumbling on a constitutional law class and loved it. And then became a poli-sci major, not knowing what I was going to do with it, but I just liked it. And I was like, but I'll never go to law school. Don't worry. And so then, went off and worked at Santa Clara University in their athletic department doing the marketing, and loved it, was having such a good time. But I thought I had other interests. And so I had always been passionate about politics and civil rights. And as I mentioned earlier, just wasn't sure that sports was a career. I was like, oh, this will get old, or I don't know. I just didn't have role models, of like that would show me that this was a real job, I guess, and so I was like, I'm gonna go up to law school. and they're like, well, do you want to be a lawyer? I'm like, no, and will you take
But
the
it
bar?
sounds
No,
good. It
but it
sounds real
sounds
good.
good. And they'll teach me how to think, whatever
Yeah.
that means, and so sure enough, I went off to law school. I went to Georgetown, which, going to law school in DC, there's just no better place because you can saunter by the Supreme Court and
Yeah.
walk over the Hill and you just know what's going on in the world. And had a great experience, but about 15 minutes in, much like 15 minutes into my first basketball practice, about 15 minutes into law school, I realized I didn't have other interests. I liked sports and I liked the people that worked in sports. And so I stayed involved in sports, throughout my 3 law school years. I did love law school. Like I find the law super interesting. So I enjoyed that experience and did intern a bunch of, DC actually has a lot of sports opportunities because various organizations have, not really lobbying, but they have an office in DC so that they can inform the government as they need to be. So intern at the NCAA, intern for the NFLPA. Who else was in DC? We had a charity basketball game. So anything that was sports related, I tried to stay involved any way I could. And but despite what my former self thought, of course I became a lawyer and of course I took the bar because at this point I had a lot of debt. So like, yeah, let's give this law thing a try. And so went to work for a law firm back home in Los Angeles, and they did some sports work. So I tried to marry my love of sports with this now expensive legal degree that I owned. And at the end of the day, just decided I didn't want to be a lawyer. Lawyers serve an incredibly important, critical role in our society. They're very good at making sure that T's are crossed and I's are dotted and that our companies are protected. And when asked, people are like, well, what if you were the general counsel of the NBA? I was like, well, that sounds amazing. And I want to be at that table, but I don't want to be in that seat. Like that seat has a specific function and that's not, what I enjoy as much. So Celeste, your question, did I need to go to law school? I don't know. Would I do it all again? Yes, because I met some amazing people. I appreciate having that experience and that training. And I think in business, it's just incredibly helpful to feel confident that when your legal counsel sends you a document, I can read it. I don't like it. I don't want to read it, but I know I can. And so I think in just that general, the variety of experience you get by going to law school, I think has served me well as the people that I kind of collected on the way. But needs probably a strong word, but would I do it again? Yeah, I would.
This is such good information. Our last guest that we had on was Heather Hunter. She's the athletic director at UC Davis, an old friend of mine from the same area, and she got her doctorate. And so we posed that same question to her saying, hindsight's 2020 and education is a huge part of this podcast, like in really trying to plot out for people looking to work in sports, what kind of education do you need? Right. Cause like Celeste and I joke, like I probably didn't need a college degree to be a baseball reporter, right? You kind of just get thrown into the fire. So looking back, she said, if I had to do it over again, I'd probably just get my MBA. And because that satisfied where she is, even though she loves what she's done. But yours is a different side. Like you wouldn't do it again. And you found something within your path that you didn't continue with that helps you in your current path. And I'm always trying to tell my students, like, even when you find your no, like, this is not for me, that's a win. Like to push that aside and I don't have to worry about that anymore. So you're a living proof of you went through the process, you did it all and decided it's not for me. And look where she is. I mean, it's, you do land on your feet, you guys, it happens.
Oh, no, Amy, you're 100% right. And that's such a big part of it is that I think had I not gone, I always would have wondered, like, what if, or maybe it would have led to something else, or I'd be sitting here being like, oh God, I'd love to be the general counsel of the NBA because like that's got to be fun, right? Or whatever it is. But and I find myself saying that too, like the ability to go in there and try it and know that that's not, and cross it off your list, like awesome.
Cross it off. Like
there's such
relief.
Yeah,
relief.
100%. There's such sort of peace in that where it's like, oh no, I tried it, and grateful for everything that experience gave me. But but one of the biggest things it gave me was confirmation that wasn't the right path for sure.
Yeah. So let's kind of go back towards that time. You finished law school. You tried to be a lawyer. wasn't really what you wanted to do. So then how did you pivot? I know that's like a very overused word from COVID, but it's kind of appropriate. And then take us on your career journey. What was your first job in sports after deciding being a lawyer wasn't what you wanted to do? And then what followed after that?
Absolutely. And I get asked a lot, especially from fellow lawyers, for like, you got out, like, get us out too.
Like the mafia. Pull me
Exactly.
back in. Yeah.
Exactly. And when I tell them, I'm like, well, there's one distinction, right? Like I worked in sports starting in high school and then all throughout college, and then even for a couple years after, and then even in law school, I had various sports related positions. So as opposed to some folks who were like, law, sports, I was like, well, sports, law, sports, and so I think it was an easier transition back, certainly. I think on my resume, it was harder to explain the little law school part than it was the rest of the sports progression. But I was nearing, generally you spend at least a year at the law firm, and I was nearing the end of the year and had a conversation with someone who played basketball at Stanford, Amy Brooks, who's been crushing it at the NBA for as long as I know. And I had a call with her. I remember this very vividly, driving in, just set up an informational interview. Basically, I was like, Amy, I know this law firm thing isn't going to work out for me. Tell me about what you do. And she started telling me about team marketing and business operations that the NBA and WNBA, then D League, now G League, have at the NBA. And she's telling me about it. I was like, oh, that sounds super fun. And at the end of it, she's like, well, you kind of like women's basketball, right? And I was like, yeah, that's most of my resume. So she forwarded it on to someone I had already kind of met along the way, and ended up having an opportunity to interview for the NBA and the WNBA, really focusing on the WNBA business, and grateful that they took a chance on a lawyer, because there weren't many. Although the joke is that NBA stands for nothing but attorneys, in our group, it wasn't so many of us, but ended up moving to New York and working for within the Teambo group of the NBA, focused on 5 WNBA teams in particular. And that was really my professional sports boot camp. That's where I learned that, it's sports, pro sports organizations are sales organizations. Fundamentally, we sell ticket sales, we sell tickets, we sell sponsorships, we sell naming rights. And if you're really good at all those, you get to be president, and so it was intimidating at first, because especially I was working really closely with a lot of people who'd worked at teams or who'd led the sales organizations, and Teambo loved to pick some of the brightest stars from teams and have them come and work for the league office for a couple of years, see everything, and then as I was told during my interview process, 2 years later, we want you to go back out to the teams. It was a very smart and strategic structure. And but intimidating for someone who had never sold a ticket in her life to be in sales training, I think on day 3, day 4, and then be out in the market working with team partners. It really is their sales consultant and guide, and looking for ways to help them drive the business. But it was an awesome 2 years, met some phenomenal people, and then had a chance to follow one of my colleagues, essentially for me back home, to work for the Sparks, and get to hopefully put everything I had learned back into practice. So then jumped back to the Sparks and back to women's basketball in my hometown, which was a fun jump back.
That's so cool.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
So working with the NBA, going more into the WNBA and working with women, what was the biggest difference you saw immediately stepping into the Sparks between the two?
That's a good question. Sure, there was a difference, and I think that's where, I guess if I had to, the league office obviously is incredibly well resourced, and I had a really positive experience at the NBA. It was great, and then transitioning to the Sparks, I saw, I think, so much hope and aspiration, and this was, women's sports are in a different place they were when I was at the Sparks. But just, but still, WNBA teams and women's sports don't have the resources. Obviously the resources are paid by TV revenue and ticket sales and sponsorship, and those are still catching up on the women's side. So, the women's sports at a team level, I don't know if you guys have heard this quote, but it's like, don't forget that Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did, but she did it backwards and in heels. And feel that way about women's sports teams. And probably that's how I would explain the Sparks is the NBA. in NBA teams, or that's Fred Astaire, and they're amazing dancers. Meanwhile, Ginger Rogers over here, like, is trying to, do it backwards and in heels, and with, trying to do everything and be, do everything at an NBA level, but with, WNBA level just resources in terms of staffing and marketing budgets and things like that. So we had to be scrappy, which was a lot of fun. You're the underdog, especially as I think it was like 15 years ago or whenever I was there, but maybe more. I'm bad at math. But yeah, just trying to still do everything and be everything, particularly for the women on the court, and for all the fans. But you're in pretty tight budgets to do so.
I know.
Yeah.
Speaking
We're
about
getting there,
trying
though.
to, I know.
Yeah.
I do want to ask about the progress. I'll ask you at the end, but just trying to be everything for everyone off of that, somehow through your career, which it sounds incredible and also very exhausting. You found time to have 2 children and just add mom to your resume. It's fine. Right under team manager, there's mom, right? Where do you find the drive and the patience and the energy to do this? And what's your advice? I always kind of get that, like, how do you do it all? Because I have 2 kids and work, I, I don't really know where mine comes from. Do you know where yours comes from? I kind of just feel like I have this duty, like, well, you just get it done. But what's your key?
A great question. I don't know if I've ever thought of it like that. I definitely am a huge believer in that it takes a village. So, and we're very fortunate. We have a fantastic full-time nanny who makes it all possible. And
Yeah.
without her, I'm not sure I couldn't, like, physically, logistically, I couldn't do it. I also have an incredible partner in my husband, who's phenomenally supportive of me, and a great father and a great husband, and just all of the things. And so he makes it possible. So I think the huge believer in it takes a village, and sometimes some other mommy picks up my kid from baseball practice, and sometimes some other daddy does it, and so it's, so certainly, being very, and it's hard because you're like, no, I can do it all. I can bake the cupcakes. And I'm like, no, I can't. And I don't want to.
I can buy the
I can buy
cupcakes
them.
already made.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. No, 100%. And so, but I'm so grateful. I think my kids have really provided, going back to like the drive. I mean, they're the reason, what's that, like the reason for the season, like they're the reason for all of it. And it's they make things just that much more fun, and seeing it all through their lives, or through their eyes, excuse me, has been great. But they've also forced prioritization, whereas I would just stay at work until whatever hour, I would just whatever, and now, like, no, I don't miss bedtime unless I have no other option, or dinner time or whatever, or one of their youth sports practices or games that are my favorite parts of the week. So I think so they, I don't, I've been blessed with a lot of resources that make it more
manageable.
Thank you. Manageable, feasible to do it, and I would just say they are my drive now at this point, where it's like, no, we're going to do it all. And you're going to also
be there
also
with me.
watch. Exactly. And sometimes they do go on trips, or sometimes they do, and be a part of it, but try to let them see the fun. I'm also incredibly lucky. Like, I love my job. And as my husband says, I get to work in the toy department. And so for them to hopefully see that and see the love of that, and if that can be something that, they can try to emulate, and hopefully they're fortunate enough to, then that's great. That'd be awesome.
I honestly think that's one of the best things you can pass on to your children is a love of what you do for a living. And so they know that if you had a choice, you'd of course be with them, but you're also happy where you're going, and you're happy with what you do, and happy with yourself. And I've always felt like that was one of the best things I could pass on to them. It was hard to leave at, in the afternoon for a baseball game. I didn't know what time I was going to get home from. And, it was hard to go to the playoffs with the Giants and know I might miss Halloween this year. And sure enough, I did. Right. But they knew I was really happy in what I did. And I see that now with my son in college, really being careful with his choices about where he works and what he wants to do and following a passion. And so I think that's great what you're doing.
No, someone early on when I became a working mommy gave me advice. She said, never apologize to your children for your job. And at the time I was like, okay, but now like mommy's going to New York next week. I'm not feeling sorry for it. Like it's fun. Like I'm excited, and it doesn't mean I won't miss you. And I know I'm missing a baseball game, and don't worry, all the guilt's there,
Oh yeah.
but yeah,
The
like
guilt doesn't go away. Yeah.
exactly. But I'm not going to say sorry for the fact that I am going to do this because this is what makes mommy happy as well. And so, but it's hard. It's a juggling. I mean, just like it is for parent care or whatever the fact pattern is, trying to work and do everything else too. It's really challenging.
I just have to ask this really fast. I know you got one, Celeste, but one of our guests was the producer for the Colorado Rockies, Allison Vigil, and I had the same experience. So I got to ask you, like, when you have to go on a trip and mommy has to go to New York, do any of mommy's friends or coworkers say, "Oh, is daddy going to babysit the kids?" That's my favorite line where and Allison was like, "No, he's going to raise them because that's his job."
Dad. Yeah.
He's the dad. Have you ever been asked that? I got it so much in my career.
Somewhat similarly. Yeah. It was, if I was on a trip, it's like, well, who's going to watch the kids?
Who would watch?
And I'm like,
couldn't be your husband.
Their dad.
Imagine that.
And one boss in particular, whom I love, whom I love, is just like, he can do that, and I'm like, he can, it's just, like he's better at it than I am. This was early on with diapers and stuff too, and I'm like, he's fine, don't worry about him. And so, but yeah, absolutely, they are, 100%.
Makes me giggle.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the many reasons why I love you, Lindsay, because, when we booked you, we were so excited that you were going to come on. And I was telling Amy, she is the real deal. Ever since I met you at Fox Sports, it's just, you inspire so many women. You were really a huge advocate for the women of Fox Sports. You created that organization there and helped move that along. But just, it shows in everything you do for women. And, you've been given a lot of awards. Wise has recognized you. The one I'm going to name out is in 2020, you were awarded with a top women in media industry leaders recognition. So where does that love and that leadership come from? Like, how do you even find that drive to do that on top of everything else?
Yeah, I don't know. You keep asking me, you both keep asking me about this drive, and I'm like,
we want an answer.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to know.
I'm like, I like a double latte with
Starbucks.
They're great questions, and I don't know. I am a strong believer in to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I'm incredibly grateful. I had a wonderfully supportive childhood and incredible parents, and who just poured so much into me. And so I don't know. I just love doing it, and I love watching. And then selfishly, I get a lot out of it because I love watching people grow and like get to know them, and I enjoy. I'm an extrovert, so I really like people, and so maybe that's where the energy comes from. I don't know, but it's just so fun to watch people grow, and now, as I'm now one of the older folks in the room, which still confuses me because I feel like the intern on most days, like, it's just so awesome to watch people progress and to open up opportunities for individuals, or to encourage them to go into sales when they never thought about it, or to try to get more women into the production truck, or any of these things where I know. And some of it too is it's because it's better for the business. I know that if we have a more diverse workforce, we're going to have better results. And so there's some, pure business reasons to do it. I think there's certainly that drive me, and then there's certainly some selfish reasons of like, I just love watching people do great things and go and move on. Yeah, it feels good. And they all, and now at this, it's one of my favorite reasons for working in sports. Like I just go work with my friends all the time, and now that we've all progressed, and there's friends at every team, and there's friends at every network, and we just all, we're buddies. And so, so that's a little bit of fun too. That, and I've always been the party planner. My 8th grade Spanish teacher told me, I ran into her at the store and she's like, man, you couldn't speak Spanish, but you could plan one heck of a pizza party, and so it started young.
Fiesta.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It started young. And so, I've just been planning parties and planning
I
events.
think you were planning for this role in your life, your whole life, it sounds like. And I just, just to say it, Lindsay, there's women who see things and know that things should get done. And then there's women who see things and get it done. And so whether you know why you're one of the ones that get it done or not, we're just grateful because it takes women like you who actually execute. So thank you.
Thank you for all these kind words. This is such a, yeah.
Well,
Such a
we're
warm
doing
hug.
it
I love
because
this
it makes
podcast.
us feel really good, right? Like
Nice. I know.
Yeah.
Why are you? Yeah. Tell me. I
Yeah.
mean, this podcast, and I don't. Probably should have let off with this, but it's so awesome that you two are doing this, and what an incredible resource. And yeah, and so I don't know where you all get your drive or your caffeine or whatever it is, but it's just awesome. So thank you both for doing this. And I know Celeste, you've been pouring into others for as long as I've known you, and Amy, I'm sure you're exactly the same. And so it's just awesome to see. Really cool.
That means so much to us.
Yes.
Everything you said resonated so much. I mean, there really is a part of, we talk after each show about how good it feels to talk to people like you, networking in our own right? But also providing a resource to people who we didn't have it. There weren't very many women to look at in these positions. First of all, nobody was doing what you're doing. Nobody when I was a little girl. And so the whole, if you can see it, you can be it movement is incredible. And to jump in and be a part of it and find something that like really hasn't been that tapped into yet, because nobody really shared their secrets, because I think women have been protected for a long time because they didn't have a lot of real estate, in this game. And so I love that it's opening up, and it really, we talk about every time, and we're always like, I don't know Lindsay very well, but I'm pretty sure we would be best friends. Like after every podcast, we feel that way with we're like, did she invite us to come visit? I think,
I heard Sonoma. I'll be right there. Hold on. I'm coming.
So I know we're getting ready to wrap up and you're super busy. There's a couple of more. And one was just about your involvement in youth sports. And you've mentioned several times your kids, and it's your favorite thing to go to their games during the week, that's so much fun. It's the best. What do you want to say about, youth organizations and the importance for people to get involved?
Absolutely. I think it's such a great, I mean, just like as we started talking about now, I wished I had started younger, and now with a 6-year-old girl, and I've had the pleasure of coaching her and some of her friends from school for the past few years. And it's just awesome to watch them continue. But it's also, youth sports is in such an interesting space right now because there's such a pressure to specialize in sports or to join a club team. And so some of the kind of more foundational recreational leagues at your local park, they're either sort of ceasing to exist, or they don't have the participation, certainly not the more varied abilities, as club sports kind of pull folks out. And so it's something it's just become a personal passion. And as in my kids' friend sphere, a lot of folks know I work in sports, and many of them know I have strong opinions about it. So I've kind of become this person where they text me and they're like, okay, so wait, why are we not doing club sports again? I'm like, here's why, and so, and club sports might be right for the certain kids in certain sports. And I'm, it's not a one size fits all by any means, but just really trying to find ways, of amplifying the role that playing multiple sports, and the science and the doctors, and they all agree it's better for their bodies, and they don't burn out as much, and they don't have the repetitive use injuries. And so I'm watching so many families are like, nope, it's travel ball starting at 6, and they're playing softball or volleyball, whatever sport they're playing. And by the time they get to high school, they're like, Mom, Dad, I'm done. I don't want to do it. Yeah. And so I just, I heard somebody say, it's like, we're trying to make the best 11-year-old athlete we can. And it's like, but why? What are we doing? And so encouraging anything we can do to encourage parents, who maybe aren't as comfortable in the youth sports space or don't know, or just kind of following what their friends do. Like, how do we arm them and just give them more information? And like, hey, you don't have to do this. There are other options, and your kid's still going to be great. And your kids still can be an elite athlete, because generally, when if they're too burned out and they're not going to play in high school, their athletic career is done. That's then or they'll take up golf or whatever they'll do, but they're not going to pursue this. And I love hearing from the elite athletes, who when asked, like, how do I make my 9-year-old the best pitcher? And it's like, sign them up for soccer. It's like, that's just anything we can do to get that information out there. Cause I think it's critical not only to raise the next generation of elite athletes. We can't burn all these great kids out, when they're 7. And secondarily, just empower parents to make the best choices for their kids and their families, knowing all the information, and that they really don't have to specialize when they're 4, and they'll still have an amazing athletic career, and more importantly, hopefully an amazing life, learning from all the lessons and the friendships that sports affords. And so yeah, I'm looking for more organizations and things to get involved in on that side. And it's because it's just such a fun, and crazy ecosystem, so much money and so many kids participate, and that's awesome. How do we keep kids playing, especially middle school girls? How do we keep them going? And so love trying to figure out ways to bring more girls into that and keep them there.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about LA 84 and what they do?
Speaking of great organization in youth sports, so L84 was founded by really the surplus from the 1984 Olympic Games, and since then they have an endowment where they write grants that help fund youth sports programs throughout the Los Angeles area. And then in the last few years, under the wisdom of the board and Renata Simrel, the executive director, have really become advocates for a platform they call Play Equity, which means that, hey, every kid should play regardless of which zip code. And I'm seeing this, with kids who are entering sports. Oh my gosh, the fees, the equipment, it's a lot, and we're doing all the rec leagues. We're not even doing club sports. And so, so many families can't do it. Like, there's just no way. And so the Play Equity Fund and L84 really focus on trying to close that play equity gap, so all kids can enjoy the benefits of sports, regardless of where they live and whether their parents can write a check for it. And so I've been lucky enough to be involved in that organization the last few years. They have a summit coming up, so feel free to check out their website if anyone wants to join me. I'll be there. And but yeah, it's a great organization, and one I've been very fortunate to be a part of for a bit.
I know. I kind of feel I am part of the problem, because our daughter is 16 and she does play club volleyball, and I struggle mightily with how I grew up. And I played community, soccer and softball, and I was a 3-sport athlete, and we didn't have the demands that travel puts on sports programs anymore. And our coaches in high school weren't the travel coaches recruiting for their high school team. And you go down this horrible rabbit hole. And I think the way Paul and I justify it to an extent is Gracie decided a long time ago she just wanted to play volleyball. And we were like, the second you don't love it, then we're not doing club anymore. I mean, it's so expensive, and you realize so many families are out financially. So it's not fair. And yet I feel like I'm part of the problem. But yeah,
she's still playing, and she still loves it.
Well,
and so that's, your fact pattern's a little different.
I know it hasn't affected her high school career. Like, she's excited to play high school. And so that was kind of what I was looking for, was a sign, because I definitely I drew the line at, like, you're not playing 3 sports and you're not playing club 3 sports. There's no way. Like, first of all, we can't afford it. So if you want to play 3 sports in high school, fantastic. But she wouldn't make it on basketball or soccer or track because she didn't play travel ball. Like, that's how intense it's getting. And it's just, something is very wrong with the system. So come on, Stanford grad.
Fix it.
Come
I
on.
know. Yes.
You're gonna fix it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
tough.
I don't know how yet, but we're gonna do it.
It's tough, and I definitely feel like part of the problem. I know I am, and that's why I had to say something here while she's saying it, because I can't just be like, yeah, no, that's great, and then we'll
You're
is
aware.
your daughter
You're,
in club volleyball,
Exactly.
Yeah, she
Exactly.
is. So, but I
No,
agree 100% with, I really do. It's so important. It was so much of our childhoods growing up was the opportunity to play, when we had sports offered to us, whatever we wanted. So I'm going to help you in your efforts. I might come to that summit
Okay.
and be a little bit of a hypocrite. Yeah.
You'll learn and grow. You'll learn and grow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Lindsay, we know you have to get going. So last
sweet.
question for
Yes.
anybody listening.
Mhm.
Best piece of overall advice about
Mhm.
working in sports?
Don't be a jerk. Be kind. Like it is such a small industry. Yeah, such a small industry. And so be somebody that people want to work with, do what if you say you're going to do something, do it. And so just, don't be a jerk is the biggest one. Work hard, be curious, all those stuff too. But it's as we all live every day, it is everybody knows everyone. And it doesn't matter who you list as your 3 references, those people will never get called. But you know who will get called? That person that you maybe weren't so nice to. or that person that you thought was just the assistant, but who actually, is somebody's son or daughter. You never know. So so be your best self to everyone along the way, and leave a trailing of fans behind you in every stop, and because it all gets connected real fast.
I want to
Real
know,
fast.
I want to have Lindsay say that same answer not in 10 years when her son's 19 and or is it your son that's older and daughter's
He's
younger?
older. Mhm.
Yeah. And see what word goes in place of jerk. Cause I was like, it was not jerk. I had a much bigger, worse word. And I'm like, it's because I have a 19 and a 16-year-old.
Yeah. No,
You can tell she's got littles.
It's funny.
Jerk's
I
a
thought
big
you were
deal.
actually gonna correct me, because jerk's a little harsh for us,
That's when you don't know me very well.
Yeah. So I thought you were gonna be like, I'm sure.
I'm not being a jerk in this podcast. I'm being on my best behavior. But no, I would definitely replace that word with my piece of advice. But I'm right with you. Be
Absolutely.
authentic. Yeah, because you're not going to
And
get
be
anywhere
good.
if you're a jerk. Yeah, just be good.
Mhm.
I love it. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you for your
Thank you both.
time.
Thank you
Yes,
so much for the
thank
invitation
you.
and for
Yes.
asking me to participate. It was such an honor. It is such an honor. And so good to catch up.
Worthy.
No,
We're
we're
not worthy.
You've been listening to Girl, How'd You Get That Gig with hosts Amy G and Celeste Gehring. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. The handle is @GirlGigPodcast. Followers and subscribers are automatically entered to win our giveaway prizes, announced every other Wednesday on our Instagram page. Until our next episode, go get that gig.